What is going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and I I just had to say this right off the bat that this is the one video that I was very much dreading on having to do. I mean, I think that especially from the get-go, I knew it was going to be done at some point, but especially in a fashion like this, it's a little hard to talk, especially about what happened within the past week, really, and really thinking about where the season came from to come to this point. But I think it's finally time, after a long discussion, that I should probably bring this up. But I'm just going to say right off the bat that if I do sometime don't sound exactly like myself during this video, still trying to recover from that game a little bit and try to give you the best I can without like 100% completely, like, basically just throwing out all my feelings on you guys at one time. So just quick disclaimer before I get into it, but hope you guys enjoy the video in the process as well. So again, if you guys haven't done so already, like, comment, subscribe, greatly appreciate it. I just broke 50 subs. My next goal is 100. Help me get up there. I really greatly appreciate it, because the best way to show support is to subscribe and hit that like button. And also comment down below about your thoughts on the video. It'd be really appreciated. But finally, it's time to really get into this season as a whole. I'm going to really start off with how I really thought this season exactly went. So let me just paraphrase it by saying that I was worried. I haven't really been saying this a lot, but I was worried about this coming for a while now, because let me just be real about what the situation was. So ironically, if you think about it, like just by the record standpoint. So by the record, it says that we were a 14-2 team, and bottom line is, when I'm thinking about the game, if I'm not mistaken, at least 9 of those games were decided by 7 points or fewer. Now, really, in my opinion, we only lost one of those games this year, and that was the Raiders loss in week number 5. But I don't really say that the Chargers loss, I mean, I have to put down there because that's what the record says, but we really were resting guys at that time. So just not counting the Chargers game where we were just resting most of our starters, we had one loss this year. So that's what the record said. But ironically, a lot of those games were extremely close. And this brings me back to really that the injuries really hurt us a lot, because just looking at the injuries as a whole, let's just say who we lost this year, or we were missing for quite some time. So before the season, we were missing one of our veteran offensive linemen, Lauren Duvernay-Tardif, opted out of the season. I think the first one to opt out, one of the first ones for sure. Not sure if he was the first one though. And automatically, that was a big one. But it wasn't like ear popping at me at first. But another big one, which is probably the big major one of the year, was our star running back, Damian Williams, opted out of the season. And then at that point in time, I wasn't exactly sure what our run game would come up to. Obviously, we drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire from LSU in the draft, last pick of the first round. And then mid-season, we signed Le'Veon Bell to a 1-year deal. So, or 1-year deal, I think is what it was. But whatever. We signed him to a deal. So just thinking about that, I thought that Damian Williams was going to be the key piece in this run. Now, we did well in the running game, I think. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire definitely showed some strides this year, and Bell has really not been what I expected. And here's the reason why I would say that, is that when you think about Le'Veon Bell, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was really the guy that was really, like, remember that Buffalo game early in the year where we beat him in Buffalo? He ran for almost 200 yards rushing on the ground. Like, he was just tearing it up and tearing it up and tearing it up on the ground. Now, I thought that the place where Le'Veon Bell would come in would really be that he was going to be that pass-catching guy out of the backfield, because not ironically, excuse me. You're going to see you have two runners now who have two different responsibilities as their main priorities. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who you can just pound the ball with like 1,000 times in a game, and then you have Le'Veon Bell, who you can catch balls out of the backfield. And I thought they were going to be equally used that way. But Le'Veon Bell was really, I think, underused. I think we could have done a lot more, especially with Le'Veon Bell this year. And I think that, especially when we think about what impact he could have brought, I thought this was a great pickup when he was signed. But I think that, especially, and now injuries are a whole other part of it, which I'll get to in a little bit. But I think that, just long story short, I would say that we could have used him a lot more than we did this year, because I think that really the main priority that you need to give Le'Veon Bell the ball is when you're basically throwing usually screenplays. I think he's very good on, and then especially when he's running behind the quarterback and out of the backfield, and then or basically just running bubble screens. That's really, I think, where he can really will be used at his best performance. But I think that I just didn't see enough of it this year. And I think that, especially if we want to win games, I've seen a lot of teams like the Cleveland Browns, if you compare Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb with. I think that if those two would use their runners a lot more, both of them, then we probably could have lost that game, because that was the game when, of course, Mahomes went out. It was pretty ugly, and a lot of things went wrong really in that game that made it extremely close when it really couldn't have. But that's not really where this run ended up, so I'm not going to really speak about that game a lot. But bottom line is, if Bell was used more, I think that this season could have gone a lot different, because then the injuries, of course, were interrupted. Well, the injuries, of course, interrupted both of those runners with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Le'Veon Bell, which I'll get to in a second. But just when they were playing on the field, I think that it would really have been a lot better if we just used Bell for that priority more. That's my opinion, and I think that it could really have changed the outlook of our running game a lot more if we use him in that priority. So that's what I think about that. Now, let's talk about the injuries here, especially. I think that when you think about the injuries, what you really need to figure out is that we were really bitten by the injury bug. That's not able to be argued. But the bottom line is that when you are bitten by the injury bug too much, now I'm not blaming injuries for the run, because that's what every team has to deal with. I think that just the injury aspect, if I just thought of what would have happened if those guys were there, then this season, especially the playoff run, could definitely have been a lot different. Because just to name a couple injuries, all right, we lost both of our tackles, to injuries, and, well, not both of our tackles for the entire playoff run. I'm talking about Schwartz, one of our veteran guys, one of the elite tackles that we have, has been there for a while and knows his assignments, was missing for weeks, especially the end of the season and the postseason. I mean, that's a very key guy. And then in that AFC Championship game, when really we didn't even need to do anything, we just needed to run the ball. What ends up happening is, unfortunately, is that Eric Fisher tears his Achilles and is now out for the season and misses the Super Bowl. So we were down both of our tackles that game. So that's just one of the injuries. Now, the corners, which I'm not going to get into too much into this video, because I'm going to get into it in some future videos when we get closer to the draft and free agency, but our corners especially, and it's not just because of injuries. There were some other reasons as well, that our cornerback room on the defensive side of the ball was very, very thin this year. And it's not because of the corners that we have. I think that they have potential. It's just that the depth that we have at that position was nowhere near where I thought it was going to be before the season. So I think that was a big issue as well. Is that the one place where I knew the biggest flaw on this team was, excuse me, I think the biggest flaw especially was that room was super thin at depth, because when you have a cornerback room that is extremely thin at depth, then when you suddenly get injuries, it just lowers the amount of corners that you have at that position. And then you got to put players who are supposed to play like linebackers or safeties and put them in the corner position. And then it gets more complicated from there. So I think that really I want to get more corners, especially I learned from this year. We need to get some more corners, especially in the draft. Now, I'm not going to get into what we should do here, but what I am going to say is that we need to address the defensive side of the ball, really as a whole, not just the cornerback room. We need to address the defensive side as a whole. And what I think needs to happen, especially in this draft, we have, of course, the 31st pick, and we also have a lot of other picks other than that. But I think that the biggest priority for this draft is going to be defense heavy. Because bottom line is, if you're just looking at, I haven't seen the exact free agency list yet, but bottom line is that the receiving core we don't really need. We have guys that are already signed. We have a lot of depth at that position, and we can easily manage that. Quarterback, I do not think is an issue right now. Running back, we have plenty of depth. We're going to get Damian Williams back. Then you have tight end, Kelsey, that's fine. And then really the offensive line, we can just get healthier, and then we'll be fine at that position too. So I don't think that the offense really is that big of an issue. What really is the issue is the secondary. That's the bottom line. The pass rush and the secondary need to be improved. First of all, I was really high on this pass rush heading into the playoffs. That was nowhere to be seen in the Super Bowl. Like, we just to go to the game for a second, especially on the defensive side of the ball. That now, granted, we did have some good plays that were called back, but bottom line is that you don't lose, especially a team of this caliber. You don't lose to a team that is a 5 seed. I put it in air quotes as a 5 seed because I just don't see this team as a 5 seed because you're playing against the greatest quarterback of all time, and then he has a lot of experience. He's been in this game 10 times, and he's won 7 now. And 6 before this game, but now has won 7. So when you think about it, the bottom line is I knew heading into this game we were going to have to step it up on the defensive side of the ball. And if you flash back to my keys video, which is on my channel, you guys can go check it out. I said the protection battle and pressure battle will win us this game. Now, the pressure battle was nowhere to be seen. If I could recall, we hit him a couple times. We hit Brady a couple times. We only sacked him, I think, twice. That's not going to win you the game. Now, granted, if you think about Brady as a whole, you really think he has like a body armor around him and is very well protected. But, I mean, I can't say that's an excuse. I mean, you got to game plan it so that like you blitz, like I didn't see enough blitzes in this game that really could get to him. Like we were rushing like 4 at one point. He's not getting sacked from a 4-man rush all the time. All right? I understand that. But the bottom line is when you want to get to Brady, you need to come up with creative plays that you can get to him, which means if you're rushing a safety, if you're rushing a corner, if it's 4-man rush, whether you blitz everybody, whatever it may be, you just need to get to him more. That's the biggest takeaway from that side of perspective from this game. Now, the protection battle, granted we were missing both of our tackles, but Mahomes did not have a clean pocket the entire game. And that led to us not even really sniffing the end zone. In my opinion, and I think this is 100% true, and a lot of you guys will agree on this, we only sniffed the end zone one drive, right? And we had very few drives that even reached opponent territory. That's bad. All right? We lost this team by 22 points. Now, I'm not going to blame officials here because I think that if I just said it would just really be just blaming them and that would really just change the game on their part. But the bottom line is you can't just blame them. There's so much more clear evidence in this game that led to this loss. The defense, nowhere near its caliber. You had Mahomes, not a single clean pocket basically throughout the entire game. That's not going to fly on this team. All right? I say this a lot throughout the season. Is that the way we can win games is that we play well on defense, which is either win the turnover battle, getting sacks on the quarterback, and everything in between. And then on the offensive side of the ball is getting a balanced offense, which includes protection for Mahomes and also coming up with a balanced scheme to fool the defense. Now, eventually, he didn't have a clean pocket, so basically, he was just second-guessing himself, basically, because he had no pocket basically the entire game. So, really, I think that the biggest takeaways from this game, just the Super Bowl here, is going to be that we really had a lot of issues on both of those parts. And I think those keys I said, we're going to decide, do we win this game? Do we lose this game? I didn't say by how much. I thought it was going to be much closer. But clearly that decided that Super Bowl was going to be won by Tampa Bay and not us. That's all I got to say. So that's what I take away from this year is that although that we had a lot of adversity we had to go through, especially on the injury side of things. Of course, really COVID with every team. We had to deal with COVID scares throughout the year. I mean, before like the haircut incident, before the Super Bowl. I mean, that's another thing we had to go through. But bottom line is there's a lot that can be learned from this year. And I do think it was a very good season. And I think that there's a lot to be learned and a lot that can be fixed from this team. We're not a perfect team. And we're not like a Tom Brady dynasty kind of team. Just yet. I'm not saying we're not going to be, but not yet. Because there are some places that we can fix on both sides of the ball. And that could really determine what team we have. If you guys enjoyed this video, like, comment, share, subscribe, ring that bell. And until next time, have a great rest of your night and go Chiefs.